Brand new polling data suggests that Donald Trump's up in the key swing state of Arizona. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today we had to talk about the 2024 presidential election because we have a brand new poll released out of the key swing state of Arizona, and Donald Trump leads by 3 points. Yeah, that's right. Despite all the narratives surrounding the campaign, despite everyone claiming that Trump is down by 15 points, he's going to lose in a landslide, despite all those narratives, we have a brand new poll released out of Arizona that has Trump up by 3 points. Think about that. Everyone's making it sound like that Trump's up by 15 points everywhere. He's going to win in a landslide. But in reality, no. A good chunk of the polls out of Arizona in particular has been Trump leads. Now, obviously, not every poll has been a Trump lead. There's been a couple like the New York Times, like Bloomberg, where they have Harris up by a couple points. But let's be honest with ourselves. The New York Times poll was complete garbage. I went over this multiple times, but for those that don't know, for starters, they claimed that Harris was up by 5 points in Arizona. Not up by just 1 or 2, by 5. Yeah. By some miracle, they thought to themselves, there's nothing wrong here. Harris up by 5 points. Really? Despite every other pollster, including Bloomberg, which we all know that poll is a load of crap as well, they could only find Harris plus 2. So this one poll is making the average seem way closer than it really is. If it wasn't for the Harris plus 5, Trump would probably be up in the RCP average by like a point, maybe by 2. Because the only Harris leads are from the Cook Political Report and Bloomberg. Yet they only have Harris up by 2 points. And those same pollsters back in 2020, they understated Trump everywhere. So Trump being up in Arizona is quite frankly a miracle because even back in 2020, the same polls, they were understating Trump in Arizona by several points. Look at this. The New York Times final poll was Biden plus 6. Yeah. By some miracle, a week before the election, actually no, a few days before election day, they found Biden was up by 6 points in Arizona. He ended up winning the state by, 10,000 votes? Like 0.2%? That's it. And if it wasn't for Rasmussen and Trafalgar dropping Trump plus 3 and Trump plus 4, the RCP average would have been off by 2 to 3 points at the bare minimum because of the New York Times posting Biden plus 6. For crying out loud, for the entire cycle, even as late as September, they were claiming Biden was up by 5 points in Arizona. As late as October, they had it Biden plus 4, the RCP average. But the same polls now have Trump with a small lead. The average, at least. The average is Trump plus 0.5. And that's despite the New York Times pushing Harris plus 5, Cook Political Report Harris plus 2, Bloomberg Harris plus 2. If it wasn't for especially the New York Times poll, it would be Trump plus 2 right now. But either way, like if we assume the polling's spot on, this is still a Trump lead. This isn't like Wisconsin where he's down by like a point or whatever, where we assume that, okay, if past polling mistakes happen again, more than likely Trump's actually up in Wisconsin. No, in Arizona, if the polling's spot on, at least the average, Trump would be up in Arizona by a half a point. That's assuming the polling is spot on, which there's a chance it is, I guess, but there's a real possibility that it isn't. I mean, again, the same state back in 2020 was claiming that Biden was going to win Arizona by 4 to 5 points as late as October. But the very last second, the same polls said, oh, actually, it's a closer race than expected, but Harris is still going to win. Or Biden, I should say. Yeah. So compared to 2020, Trump being up by a half a point in Arizona is quite frankly a miracle. Back in 2020, he was down by 2 points, and even back in 2016, he was only up by 1.5 points in Arizona. He ended up winning Arizona back in 2016 by 3.5 points. And I know back in 2016, this was one of the few states, like the only one outside of maybe Nevada, where the polling just slightly overestimated Trump's support. He was expected to win by 4. He ended up winning by 3.5. But that's statistical noise. That's nothing. That's not a 10-point miss. But even back then, for a good chunk of the cycle, as late as October, the same polls had Clinton up by 1.5 points. So Trump's up by 0.5 point right now, despite the New York Times pushing their same BS they do every single year. He's winning Arizona. I don't see how Kamala Harris is magically up right now, especially after what she announced today. The Harris campaign just flip-flopped on the border wall. You cannot make this up. The Harris campaign, after years of calling the border wall racist, a waste of time, a waste of money, everything bad you could possibly say about the border wall, Harris and her staffers have said about it. They're now saying, we have to build the wall. You cannot make this up. And for those that don't believe me, this is right from Axios. This isn't Fox News. This isn't some far-right outlet. This is Axios reporting this. So Harris has flip-flopped on the issue of immigration. You know, an issue that's very important to Arizona because it's a border state. If she was really up by 15 points across the board, especially in Arizona, why the hell would she flip-flop on something basic like the border wall? For 10 years, she said it was a waste of time, it's inefficient, waste of money. Hell, when she was a senator, she tried everything she can to block border wall funding. But out of left field, she announced today, or actually her staffers announced, notice it's never Harris, her staffers announced, we need to build the wall. Which, out of nowhere, is now a popular policy agenda. I thought it was so unpopular and no one supported it. Really? No one supports it. Hey, I'm sure that's real. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with that theory. If it's unpopular, why the hell would Kamala Harris's campaign flip-flop on something this major? We're not talking about something insignificant. We're talking about what was one of Trump's biggest policy proposals back in 2016. What made his campaign famous? But I don't know, maybe the Harris campaign, they had a realization that, oh wait, we need the border wall. Maybe it's effective. Maybe we were wrong. That's one thing. Like, if you had a gradual realization that you were wrong, fine, that's a good thing. You understood that you were wrong and you're supporting good policy. But when it's so obvious that she's only doing this to help her politically, no one's gonna fall for it. No one. It also proves that she's probably not up by 5 points in Arizona. Because if she was, she would never do this. Because why the hell would you risk something so serious like flip-flopping? Especially this late in the game. We're not talking about something that happened a year ago and then, she flip-flopped on it, 6 months ago or something like that. No. We are not even 3 months away from Election Day. And Harris's campaign is flip-flopping on the border wall. Absolute insanity that this is happening. But that's the Harris campaign, and that's why I'm starting to wonder, is she in a good position at all in Arizona? Because if she has to flip-flop on the border wall, yeah, she might be in deep trouble. You don't run as wanting to build the border wall as a Democrat. That's a Republican policy. You never hear Democrats talk like that. But by some miracle, Kamala Harris is the first Democrat ever, at least at the presidential level, to say, build the wall. At least in the last, 20 years or whatever. That's just crazy to think that Kamala Harris's campaign, they're either so desperate or they're so stupid. There's no other explanation. If you're really up by 5 points in Arizona, like the New York Times is claiming, why the hell would you flip-flop on the border wall? Or they're just so arrogant, they're so stupid that they think to themselves, well, if we just copy and paste a popular Trump stance, we're going to expand our lead. That's the only explanations that make any kind of sense. Because She has been against the border wall for years, for 10 years straight. Not just as a private citizen, not just as the Attorney General of California, but when she was in the Senate and when she was the vice president. This is crazy that the Harris campaign thinks no one's going to notice this. No one's going to mention or notice the fact that, hey, Harris just flip-flopped on the border wall. She's sounding like Trump. Well, what's going on here? If she was really up by 5 points, she wouldn't need to do that. Now, as for how I think Arizona's going to vote this cycle, I think Trump wins it. I think he is still I wouldn't say the clear favorite, but if the Harris campaign's acting like this, they're not up. They're not winning Arizona. They're probably down by a couple points. And you look at 2020, it all comes down to Phoenix. If Trump loses Maricopa County by just under a point, he's probably winning Arizona. If it's by 2 again, he's probably done there. And again, it depends what happens in a place like Yuma, Pinal, Pima. Those counties, if they shift right, maybe he can afford to lose Maricopa by the same margin, I guess. But it looks like Trump's in a very good position, not just polling-wise, but even voter registration. It's looking very good for Republicans in Arizona. Each day it seems like they're gaining 1,000 new voters, while Democrats, they gain nothing. Now, with voter registration data, you have to be very careful. You don't know if these are McCain Republicans. You don't know if these are Nikki Haley types. That's the problem with Arizona. The Republicans there, a large chunk of them, they're just McCain Republicans. They haven't voted Republican in 20 years. But for whatever reason, they still claim they're lifelong Republicans. We've been registered our entire lives. We voted for McCain back in 2008, and that's about it. You're not a Republican, you're a Democrat. So with voter registration, it does look good. But you have to be careful. We got to make sure these are not the McCain types, because if they are, well, they're not necessarily conservative, and more than likely a decent chunk of them will vote for Kamala Harris despite Trump. Sorry but true. That's Arizona politics in a nutshell. I just love the fact these same people, they call MAGA a cult. Remember that? Every single day they call it a cult. Meanwhile, every single hour of the day, these people worship John McCain. Yeah, sure, that's not a cult, but saying MAGA makes you part of some kind of cult. Yeah, sure, buddy, sure. But we just got to see what happens. Arizona's one of those states where you could see a big shift to the right in Arizona, especially with the Hispanic vote. But Hispanics in Arizona tend to be a bit more liberal compared to other states like Texas. So if there is a Hispanic shift in Arizona, that would be enough to probably flip the state back to Trump. Now, will he win it by 15 points? Of course not. But if he wins it by even 2 to 3 points, I would consider that a victory. And that's what the new poll from Noble Predictive is predicting. A Trump +3 win. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.